Yo, 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 what's up, all you burner stores and potheads? This is Weedman420 with the Weedman420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
I'm fantastic.
I love it. Hey, all you vipers out there in the world. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. Mrs. Weedman and I are about to get normal, but before we do, we got the latest and greatest in cannabis news, political, international, culture, research, and science. It's coming at you in today's episode, everybody. Now, let's get normal with a pre-roll that was given to me by the Goodies Dispensary over in Streamwood. My friend Juice over there and team. And the Goodies team gave me these awesome pre-rolls that they're going to be knocking us out today on the show. And this is Knockout times Lung Buster. It's the Goodies Anniversary pre-roll. It's a potent hybrid cross combining the heavy sedated traits of Knockout with the gassy, funky lineage of Lung Buster. A blend of Knockout, a heavy indica-dominant legacy cross, and Lung Buster, which was bred by Soulfire Gardens from the Don Mega and Utter Madness. Lab results typically test around 24 to 30% total active cannabinoids, dominated by sharp diesel, skunky earth, pungent gas, and a subtle, creamy undertones. Fast-acting physical relaxation, deep body calm, and stress relief that can easily lead to couch lock or sleepiness. You can also get this at the Goodies Dispensary only in Streamwood. This was bred and grown and packed in pre-rolls just for the Goodies Dispensary for their 1-year anniversary party, which is August 23rd from 11 a.m. to 4:20 p.m. Go check out the Goodies Dispensary in Streamwood. I'd like to thank Juice and the team over there for hooking Mrs. Weedman and I up and throwing to the cause. I will say we've smoked this joint. We smoked 2 of them so far. They gave us 5. And I will admit, this puts me in the couch for fucking sure. It is a knockout. If you like heavy sedative indicas, this one is for you. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to tread lightly. Look at this fucking fat, jeez, this fat cone. Oh my gosh. This doesn't look like a 1 gram to me. This looks like
I think it's 1.5.
It looks like a 2 gram. It's a monster cone. Holy shit. Nice job, Goodies. Thank you for throwing to the cause. We appreciate you. Well, I'm smoking this doink, and this is definitely a doink. Mrs. Weedman's going to tell you about 8decades.com.
Yes. Head on over to 8decades.com. That's EIGHT decades.com. And there you will find our cannabis lifestyle brand. We developed the brand, created a beautiful smoke set. If you're watching us, you could see it here on display. And if you're not watching us, go to our website and check it out. We've got all sorts of great accessories. Our agenda is to stomp the stigma by using products that you want to have on display. You know, it kind of starts a conversation. It gets the flow going. You know, someone who might not know what it is might ask you about it. And next thing you know, you're advocating for cannabis or you're rolling them a joint. That'd be even better. So head on over to 8decades.com. Check us out. You'll also find all sorts of good information about the podcast and swag for the Weedman420 show. So sign up for our newsletter and you'll get free shipping on your first order. And as Mr. Weedman always says, shop with us so we could pay our producer, Shawty.
Shawty, the producer.
Yeah, she's worth it.
She makes sure you all get this show every Thursday. We record on Tuesday, and she makes sure we have this show out every Thursday. So we love Shawty, and we'd like to make sure she's paid. So thank you, everybody, for throwing to the cause. We appreciate you. Ms. Weedman. Mr.
Weedman.
We're going to talk about something that we talk almost as much about cannabis about.
What's that?
Farting. So
daily conversation
in this house. So before we get started with episode 322, everybody, we're kicking this episode off with some serious scientific research into the great mystery of the human backside. How much do people actually fart every day? And who's doing the most crop dusting along the way? You ever get crop dusted?
Yeah, no, never.
By me every day. So according to this study, Ms. Weedman, out of Australia, they had 6,400 people track their farts using a smartphone app called
Fart Knocker.
Close enough. Chart your fart.
Pretty clever.
You guess how many farts that they record, that they logged in, these 6,400 people?
Like average?
Just give me a number, like a total overall number.
Like 35.
35 per person or
per day per person.
Okay, so basically the total though,
Oh, for how long did they do this?
It doesn't really say how long, but they just said they charted it by these brave volunteers, and it was more than 360,000 farts that were logged across the 6,400 people.
Wow.
360,000 farts.
That's a lot of farts.
That is a lot of farts.
Some stinky stuff.
So somebody looked at that mountain of data, right? As it was all on Chart Your Fart, and someone said, "Yeah, this is my career now." The study found that the average people averaged about 5 farts a day, although the median was lower at around 3.8 farts per day, and about 79% of participants recorded between 2 and 7 daily. And fellas and ladies, before anybody starts getting cocky, men, Mrs. Weedman, averaged 5.2. How do you get a 0.2? Like, is like a little squirt fart, or like a little 5.2 farts a day. And women,
5.2?
That's what I'm saying. So wait.
That's it?
So wait.
Per day?
Per average. It's average. Men? It's average. But women.
Like per hour?
Were a little less, but not by much.
They're lying.
4.8 for women. I don't get the 0.8. What is like a half a fart?
Well, it's not quite 5. Yeah, they got like a little fart. A little. Or like the little sneaky silent one that doesn't even smell, you know?
Yeah,
it's just air.
Yeah.
It's just air.
Those are the worst ones, though.
No, they don't smell. They're great. Like,
for you, maybe.
It doesn't bother anybody.
But they call it silent but deadly for a reason.
No, I'm saying no, silent and not smelly.
Oh, yeah.
Just air.
But I don't get those in my
You're like, where does that exist?
When it's a silent one, I run.
You don't even know that happens.
No, I need to hide my face myself. But here's where it gets interesting. The 26 to 45-year-old age group was the gassiest, averaging just over 5 farts per day. Between ages 46 to 65, we're right behind them at about 5 per day. The youngest group, ages 14 to 25, only averaged 4.4. So it was a 4 farts and a fucking...
I got problems. My number would come in much higher. Sorry.
I almost spit my drink all over the microphone. Great. So apparently your gut has...
Well, I mean, I have a health condition
that's true.
Makes me fart, I guess.
I think...
Makes me fart more than the average woman.
I think farts are funny. I always have.
Yeah.
Flatulence is funny. I think when someone farts a real good ripper, it makes me... When you fart a good ripper, I laugh at you. It's funny. Yeah. Farts are funny.
I mean, anyone who says that they don't fart is fucking lying.
There was a time I had a friend of mine that said he dated he believed that he called them girls don't fart. I'm like, come on.
So he dated someone who just squeezed cheeks every time she was around.
He goes,
him.
I don't believe girls fart. I'm like,
they
okay.
Do. Oh, they do.
Now he's about to get married, so I got to find out.
I bet he knows now.
So here's the study points out, though, the older research has estimated people may fart anywhere between 14 to 23 times per day.
Who does?
The older research has estimated. So there's still plenty of scientists don't know about what constitutes a normal amount of gas, though. The particular study only captured farts people logged while they were awake. So nighttime emissions were left out. I like how they say, I like how I wrote down emissions. And yes, farting is completely normal, everybody. We all have to release that gas.
So can we call it like a colonoscopy as an emission test?
Nobody.
I'm overdue for an emission
Nobody messes with the doctor.
Dr. Sprockter.
No.
Dr. Vinny Boombots.
No, Dr. Quack in the Bush.
Dr. Quack in the Bush. Forgot about that one.
But there's also Dr. Detroit, Dan Aykroyd. Nobody messes with the doctor.
Yuki didn't like that joke.
No, not at all. And like I said, it's normal. I mean, you got to think, your digestive tract, you eat gassy foods, like when you eat beans and chili.
Or you inhale like
a lot,
some air
but
gets
also like,
we eat stuff fast.
When you eat a lot of beans, lentils, broccoli, Brussels sprouts,
dairy
turns the pressure up. Dairy for you, especially turns that pressure up a little bit. It in your stomach acids and your intestines stuff is getting. It's getting,
and then it's got to go.
Yeah. So before we start talking about cannabis, everybody, like we always do, remember,
have a good fart.
Somebody had to volunteer though to count 360,192 farts. So the rest of us that are listening on this show or who are going to read the article someday could have this information. That's some fucking dedication, Mrs. Weedman.
I mean, that
to
is.
count farts.
I'm a fart counter.
That's science, and honestly, that's one hell of a way to clear the room, though.
I'm working on a special project about fart.
I'm stoned already.
I'm stoned.
Said the onset comes on quick. So, but everybody, it's natural. Just don't blow it in someone's face. Mr. Weedman, you ready to get the show started?
I'm ready.
Let's do this. This article caught my attention because the headlines sound like something straight out of cannabis science fiction movie. A cannabis flavonoid stopped up to 99% of cancer cell growth, but in a lab test. And this was reported by Business of Cannabis. This weed is stony baloney, but cottonmouth. Oof. My goodness, I'll be taking a lot of sips. Now, anytime we hear 99% in cancer in the same sentence, we should probably put the bong down for a second and look at what actually happened. Because this potentially exciting research, but it's very, as we always find out, early research. Researchers working with Standard Seed Corporation tested a cannabis-derived cannaflavin enriched extract against cancer cell lines using the National Cancer Institute NCI 60 one-dose screening program. That program uses a panel of 60 human cancer cells, lines representing different types of cancer. And the results got some attention. The cannaflavin enriched extract had stopped more than 95% of cell growth in an aggressive brain cancer cell line. It reached up to 99% inhibition in several leukemia cell lines. Researchers also saw effects across cell lines representing lung, breast, ovarian, kidney, colon, and prostate cancer. Now, cannaflavins, which we've talked about a while ago, are a group of flavonoids naturally found in cannabis. Flavonoids aren't cannabinoids like THC, CBD, CBC, CBG, and all the other wonderful cannabinoids we've talked about. They're not even terpenes. These are another class of plant compounds, and they're part of the chemical diversity that makes cannabis such an interesting plant from a research perspective. And this is where things get really interesting, Mrs. Weedman. A lot of cannabis research has traditionally focused on cannabinoids, like we've talked about, THC, CBD, CBG, CBC, THCV, blah, 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 and the rest of the alphabet soup. But cannabis contains dozens of other compounds, including flavonoids and terpenes. And scientists are increasingly looking at this, what these whole compounds might be doing on their own or in combination. A recent 2026 review in Frontiers in Pharmacology looked at cannabis phytochemicals and cancer research and highlighted potential anti-cancer activity involving multiple classes of compounds, and while also emphasizing that much of the evidence remains preclinical. And that word, preclinical, is the big one here. The 99% number does not mean researchers gave cannabis a 100% cancer patient and 99% of them got better. It doesn't mean somebody smoked a joint and their tumor disappeared. It means that under controlled laboratory conditions, a particular concentration, cancer cells in a dish showed a dramatic reduction in growth. That's an important finding, but it's the beginning of a scientific journey. Definitely everybody not the finish line. In fact, the people behind this work acknowledged some pretty significant limitations. The screening used one concentration, so researchers don't yet have the kind of detailed dose response information you want to see. It wasn't an animal study, it wasn't a human clinical trial, and the findings haven't yet gone through peer review. And that's exactly why we're having different stages of medical research. First, you've got the laboratory work. Does this compound actually do anything interesting to the cells? If the answer is yes, researchers can move toward more detailed experiments, figuring out the mechanism, testing different concentrations, looking at healthy cells versus cancer cells, and determining whether the compound can even reach the tumor in the body. Then you've got animal studies, and eventually, if the safety and efficacy data support it, human clinical trials. Because here's the problem. Cancer isn't a petri dish. A human body has metabolism, blood flow, immune response, organs, enzymes, drug interactions, and a whole lot of biological chaos that doesn't exist in a plastic laboratory dish. And that's something cannabis research has taught us over and over again. A compound can look incredible in a cell culture, then behave very differently once it's got to survive the journey through the actual human body. Yeah, our bodies are fucking complex. I mean, we've learned a lot about our bodies, but we're still learning and learning, you know? So, still, I think this research is worth paying attention to, though, everybody, because cannabis is a chemical toolbox and may have only been seriously examining a fraction of what's inside it. The fact that a cannabis flavonoid-rich extract produced strong anti-proliferative, you like that, Mrs. Weedman, effects across multiple cancer cell lines gives research something worth investigating further. That weed might have got me smarter. The goal now isn't to declare victory. The goal is to figure out why it works, whether it can be made safe and selective, what dose is actually effective, and whether these laboratory results translate into real-world medical benefits. And if the future research confirms that some of the cannabis compounds can selectively attack cancer cells while leaving healthy cells alone, then we're talking about something potentially very important. So for now, we're putting this on the holy crap, Mrs. Weedman. It's interesting. But let's keep doing the science category, because 99% in the laboratory is exciting, 99% proven in humans, that's a whole fucking other level right there. And that's why we keep following the research instead of jumping straight from the petri dish to the dispensary counter. Good stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it's a start like that. You know, you got to go through all the shit. Hopefully they keep on getting funding to do it, because promising, you know. So taxes. There's
Taxes.
Benjamin Franklin said one thing in life that I'll always remember, and he did a lot for this country in the early beginnings. There's two things I know in life. I got to pay my taxes, and I'm going to die.
This is very true.
Death and taxes. The two things that's going to happen that you have to pay.
And I heard this song today. Do you realize you have the most beautiful face in the world? And then it goes on to say, do you realize that one day everyone you know will die? I was like, whoa.
That was deep, huh, while you were driving?
I wasn't even stoned. Wow. Fuck.
Now that you're stoned saying that.
Yeah, now it's like, wow.
Oh, that's pretty deep.
That's deep.
Everybody know, you know.
Everyone you know one day will die.
That's it. And pay taxes.
Yeah. Fuck the tax man. Fuck the tax man.
People aren't paying their shit right now. Good for them.
Yep.
Fuck them.
Yep.
They ain't doing anything for us but spending our money stupidly. Go ahead. Tell us about setting marijuana taxes too high drives consumers to the illegal market. And this is a federally funded study.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It was published in Health Economics, and it looked at cannabis purchasing behavior among 1,525 adults aged 21 and older. The researchers found that when legal cannabis becomes significantly more expensive because of taxes, consumers are more likely to shift their purchases toward the illicit market. The basic idea is pretty straightforward. Taxes can change where people buy cannabis without necessarily changing whether they want cannabis. If the legal product costs substantially more than an illegal market alternative, price-sensitive consumers have an incentive to go back to the unregulated market. That creates a frustrating situation for legal cannabis businesses. Licensed operators have to pay taxes, comply with testing, packaging, licensing, labor, and other regulatory costs. Illegal sellers don't have any of those expenses, allowing them to undercut legal retailers. The researchers surveyed people about their past month cannabis purchasing, looking at how tax levels and prices influenced where they bought their product. The findings suggest that policymakers need to consider the relationship between tax rates, legal market prices, and illicit market competition when designing cannabis tax policy. This is one of those situations where the government can actually tax itself out of a market. The whole point of legalization is supposed to move consumers into a regulated system where products are tested, businesses are licensed, and the state collects their revenue. But if legal weed becomes too expensive, consumers can simply say, thanks, but I got a guy. And there's another important point. The illegal market doesn't disappear just because a legal market exists. Legal cannabis has to be competitive enough on price, convenience, and product quality to actually pull consumers away from the illicit side. So the takeaway isn't necessarily that cannabis taxes are bad. Taxes can fund programs and government services. It's more about policymakers having to find a tax level that generates revenue without making legal cannabis so expensive that consumers abandon the regulated market. Basically, you can't tax legal weed into being more expensive than the weed you're trying to replace in the illicit market. It's pretty simple.
Pretty fucking simple right there.
It's like opening a lemonade stand, charging $12 a cup, and then wondering why everybody's buying lemonade from the kid down the street.
I still do.
Taxes.
I'll tell you this. Illinois has been doing about the last few years about between $430 to $460 million in taxes. With that money
from cannabis.
Just from cannabis.
One product.
One product. We should not have to pay tolls. We should not have to pay for school. We should not have to pay for health care. We should not, if they did it right and invested that money right, us Illinoisans shouldn't have to pay for very little. Our property taxes should go down.
I think just the property taxes alone.
We should not $460 million. If every
taxes would cover
city
so much.
or town did one dispensary in their town and charged 3% on top of that can go back into their town, you would make money. Illinois, though, needs to lower their tax rate down because I don't know what the fuck they're doing with that $460 million. I really don't. The school system should be every school should be rebuilt. They should be using that money back to the community, and I don't see it. So that's just me personally. And there should be an investigation so we all should be able to see where this money's actually truly, really going, because it's not going. We shouldn't have to pay tolls. We shouldn't have to pay fucking for parking. All this money that the cannabis folks are bringing in, I'm telling you right now, we're getting robbed, folks out there. I don't care, but you can come at me all you want. I'm telling you right now, we're being robbed. We shouldn't have to pay for dookie. I'm telling you right now. If not, they need to lower the tax rate down to 10% flat tax. Let every city do a 3 to 5% tax rate and let's put it back into their own cities and townships. And every town should have their own dispensary, community dispensary where you shop there. It will change the world. It'll change Illinois. I don't know what I'm talking about, right, Mrs. Weedman?
You have no fucking idea what you're talking about, Mr. Weedman.
None at all. All right. So this story takes us back. How back? Way back. That was an old song, sorry. Before dispensaries, before prohibition, before humans were sitting around arguing about whether something is indica or sativa. We're talking about the evolution of this cannabis plant itself. This article we're checking out is Cannabis Evolution. How did THC become so powerful from ZME Science? Science. And this one asks a pretty darn interesting question. Where did THC actually come from? Where did it come from, Mrs. Weedman? Those angels, right?
Yes,
they're in those leaves.
In the leaves.
Because THC didn't just magically appear on one Tuesday afternoon because some ancient stoner plant decided, you know what? The world needs me. Something that'll make the deer really hungry and the humans really philosophical. The chemistry behind THC is actually the result of millions of years of plant evolution. Scientists know that cannabis belongs to the Cannabaceae plant, and genetic research suggests the cannabis and hop lineage diverged roughly 27.8 million years ago. The fossil record is pretty lousy when it comes to cannabis. So researchers have had to piece together the plant's evolutionary history using pollen genetics and molecular clock studies. And here's where things get really cool. Cannabis produces cannabinoids using a series of enzymes. Think of enzymes as tiny biological workers inside the plant. They take one chemical, modify it, pass it along to another enzyme, and eventually you wind up with compounds like THC, CBD, and CBC, and the mother, CBG. Researchers studying the cannabis genome have found that genes responsible for those final steps in cannabinoid production have undergone duplication and divergence over an evolutionary time. In other words, the plant essentially developed multiple versions of some of these genetic tools, and those copies changed and specialized. And that matters because it helps explain how cannabis ended up in such a bizarrely diverse chemical profile. But here's something that can get lost when we talk about THC. The cannabis plant didn't evolve THC specifically to get humans stoned. Humans run around when those biochemical pathways were developing. THC is what's called a secondary metabolite, a compound that isn't required for basic plant functions like photosynthesis or making structural tissues. Researchers have proposed several possible ecological roles for the cannabinoids, including defense against herbivores, environmental stress, and other biological pressures. But scientists are still working out exactly why cannabis evolved such a sophisticated cannabinoid system. And that's important because we shouldn't be turning an interesting evolutionary question into a scientific certainty. One fascinating clue comes from the genetics. A 2021 study examining the evolution of cannabinoid-producing genes found evidence that these genes arose through gene duplication and divergence within the cannabis lineage. Basically, the plant had genetic copies and could change over time, giving evolution more raw material to work with, and humans eventually got involved. Cannabis has been cultivated for thousands of years for fiber, food, and seed, long before modern high THC cannabis existed. Archaeological and genetic evidence suggests humans later selected the plants for different characteristics, including those associated with drug-type cannabis. Modern breeding has taken the selection process and put it on fucking steroids. Well, not actually steroids, everybody. Sorry. Let me take a sip.
Having a little
Cottonmouth.
no, yep.
More like, let's grow this thing until the trichomes look like somebody dumped a snow globe on it. It's true. Man, we've seen some great stuff lately. Genome research shows that modern drug-type cannabis has undergone intense recent selection for higher THC content, particularly in modern commercial cultivars. Researchers have also found distinct breeding histories between hemp types and drug-type cannabis. So when you look at today's cannabis and see flower testing at THC percentages that would have been pretty extraordinary decades ago, you're looking at combined result of natural evolution, domestication, and very aggressive human selection. And there's another incredible piece to this story. You ready, Mrs. Weedman?
I'm ready.
In research published in late 2025 and reported in 2026, scientists at the I'm going to blow this fucking university up, Wageningen University reconstructed ancient versions of cannabis enzyme that existed millions of years ago. They essentially used genetic information and evolutionary comparisons to recreate extinct enzyme forms that test what those ancient biological machines could do. The researchers were able to demonstrate experimentally how ancestral enzymes may have contributed to cannabis developing the ability to produce cannabinoids like THC, CBD, CBG, and CBC. Think about that for a second. Scientists are basically doing Jurassic Park for enzymes. Pretty cool. They're not bringing back the dinosaur, though. They're bringing back molecular machinery from the evolutionary past and asking, what the hell could we do with this thing? And the research isn't just interesting by a form of historical perspective. Understanding how these enzymes evolved could eventually help scientists produce specific cannabinoids more efficiently for research, medicine, and biotechnology. There's also the bigger lesson here. We tend to talk about cannabis as if THC, CBD, terpenes, and all the other compounds were simply sitting there waiting for humans to discover them. But cannabis is a living organism that's been evolving and adapting for millions of years. We didn't invent THC. We just figured out how to grow the plant, select the genetics we liked, and eventually turn the THC dial up to about 11. And now modern science is going backward through the evolutionary history, trying to understand exactly how the plant developed its chemical toolbox in the first place. So, the next time somebody says today's weed is stronger than the old stuff, there's actually a fascinating evolutionary story behind it. Mother Nature built the original chemistry set. Humans just got a hold of the knobs and played in Tune in Tokyo. Just turn the knob. Sorry, everybody. And apparently we immediately cranked the THC knob all the way to holy shit. The evolutionary of THC, everybody. That's pretty good. I love that article when I read that. That was great. Mm-hmm. So Ms. Weedman is going to talk about, though, I've talked about the whole plant for 7 years, right? And I've always talked about the roots having medical or some kind of medicinal benefit to it. Grind them, eat them, chew them. Right, Yuki? Give them to her.
Maybe you dry them. Maybe you use it like ginger.
Tea, I'd say make them as a tea.
Yeah.
Steep them with the leaves and the stems and the roots and make a tea out of it. So you're going to tell us the roots of the marijuana plant have unexplored medical potential. And this is a scientific review finds this out.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it,
Yes.
Ms. Weedman.
Talk about whole plant utilization. This new scientific review that was reported by Marijuana Moment says cannabis roots may contain a variety of bioactive compounds with potential medical applications, but they remain one of the least studied parts of the plant. Researchers argue that roots are often treated as agricultural waste, even though they contain their own distinct chemistry. What's important to know is that cannabis roots aren't simply underground storage for the plant. Researchers have identified compounds in the roots, including triterpenoids, sterols, alkaloids, and other phytochemicals that may have biological activity. Historically, cannabis roots have also appeared in traditional preparations. Different cultures have used root preparations for things like inflammation, pain, and other ailments. Modern science is now beginning to investigate whether there are legitimate pharmacological properties behind some of those traditional uses. But, and this is an important science disclaimer, we're still talking about potential, not proven medical treatments. The review pulls together existing laboratory and preclinical research and suggests cannabis roots could have anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antimicrobial, and other biological effects. But much of the evidence comes from laboratory experiments or chemical analysis rather than large, controlled human clinical trials. And here's what I think is especially interesting. The roots don't necessarily have the same cannabinoid profile as the flowers.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We've spent decades focusing on buds, THC, CBD, CBG, terpenes, flavonoids, and all the other compounds people associated with cannabis. But the plant is basically a chemical factory from top to bottom. The roots have their own chemical profile, which means researchers may eventually discover compounds that are abundant that aren't in the flower at all. That could be important for medicine because scientists could be looking for completely different molecules with different biological effects. The review essentially argues that cannabis research has been heavily flower-centric, leaving other parts of the plant relatively under-evaluated. And honestly, that's pretty understandable. Most often, people are growing cannabis for cannabinoids gathered from the part of the plant that's covered in trichomes. Nobody's standing around the grow room saying, damn, look at those beautiful roots. But scientifically, those roots might deserve some attention. Researchers still need to determine which compounds are responsible for specific effects, how they work, what doses would be appropriate, whether they're safe, how they're absorbed by the body, and whether laboratory findings translate into actual benefits for patients. So this isn't a story about grinding up your cannabis roots and making yourself a medicinal tea tonight. It's more of a, hey, we might have been throwing away an interesting part of the plant story. And that's actually one of the coolest things about cannabis research right now. As prohibition restrictions loosen and scientists get more opportunities to study the entire plant, we're discovering that cannabis may have far more chemistry going on than just THC and CBD. We've spent a long time staring at that flower. Maybe it's time to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The roots.
The roots.
The roots. The roots.
Yeah.
Good band, too. Political, state, and business news. Texas State Rep James. This was great. If you did not watch this speech, find it, because I caught it, and I was like, this dude is golden. So Texas State Rep James Tellerico is using Trump's own past comments to attack Texas Republicans over the state THC ban. Tellerico argued that banning legal THC products could push customers toward illicit markets and benefit cartels. He quoted Trump calling to an end arrest over small amounts of marijuana. Go find the video. It was pretty good. This guy just, man, he did a phenomenal speech. So North Carolina Governor Josh Stein is urging lawmakers to create a regulated adult marijuana market instead of focusing only on restricted hemp THC products. Stein says the current market lacks meaningful age restrictions and consumer protections. Republican legislative leaders remain opposed to marijuana legalization while the Senate-approved hemp bill moves through legislature. North Carolina keeps circling the runway, but apparently nobody wants to land the damn plane. A lot of this political state news right now is a lot of it's going to be about hemp. Just so you all know what's going on in the hemp world. There was so much shit going on in the hemp world. I mean, I could have talked an hour of just on that. It's just a lot. So, a Maryland appeals court ruled police can search a vehicle based on cannabis odor with officers also known. The occupants are under 21. The court upheld convictions involving 2 separate traffic stops, finding that the odor plus occupant's age provided probable cause. Maryland law generally bars searches based solely on cannabis smell. So apparently in Maryland, your age can turn a whiff into a warrantless sniff. And going back to the hemp thing, everybody, I want to talk about it. But like I said, it's like being a fucking drum right now. They fucked up. Just put it that way. The government always fucks up. So they fucked up. And that last bill where they snuck it in that bill, we were all pissed off about it. Now they're trying to save it and they're trying to November's coming pretty quick. And now these group says no, they don't care. Just whatever. Boxing MMA officials are considering breath testing technology designed to detect recent cannabis use. Cannabis technology is presented as marijuana breath testing device as a way to focus on recent consumption rather than traditional tests that can detect cannabis long after impairment has ended. Why? The technology was pitched to a combat sports regulator in Orlando. The White House growing involvement in cannabis policy is raising questions about who ultimately benefits from federal reform. Changes involving marijuana's rescheduling and hemp-derived THC could reshape multi-billion-dollar industry, but critics warn regulatory changes may favor larger companies over small operators. As Washington rewrites the rules, everybody's watching the money. Always follow the money, everybody. All right, Mr. Weedman?
That's right.
It leads you to what's actually going on and what's going wrong. Mendocino County Sheriff Matt Kendall and Mendocino Cannabis Alliance agree on something unusual. Legalization created rules that could put licensed growers at a disadvantage compared to illegal operators. Kendall say legal cultivators face burdens unlicensed growers simply ignore. The county has struggled with balancing regulation enforcement and legacy illicit markets. When the sheriff and growers finally agree, the paperwork is smoking something. 7 Virginia hemp businesses are suing over rule change taking effect August 15th that limits hemp products to 2 milligrams of THC per package while ending the state's 25 to 1 CBD to THC ratio. One plaintiff says 95% of the inventory would be non-compliant, while others say 85% of roughly $736,000 in inventory could be affected. That's one hell of a clearance sale nobody asked for, right, Ms. Weedman?
That's right.
Rising electricity costs are putting additional pressure on cannabis businesses, particularly indoor cultivation operation that depends heavily on lighting, climate control, and ventilation. Energy can represent a major operating expense, making efficiency increasingly important as wholesale cannabis prices remain under pressure. An opinion piece argues cannabis companies should stop supporting efforts to prohibit hemp-derived THC products. The argument is that established marijuana businesses could ultimately hurt themselves by helping create border prohibition instead of supporting sensible regulation. With federal hemp restrictions approaching, the industry remains divided over how intoxicating hemp should be handled. Police in Wisconsin allegedly used these flock cameras now. That's all I'm hearing about. License plate reader data to track a man traveling into Michigan and back before stopping his vehicle and searching it for what? Weed. Investigators reportedly used his travel pattern as part of the justification. Noting repeated trips to Michigan where cannabis is legal, using surveillance technology to hunt for weed raises some serious fucking privacy concerns. Fuck those cameras. We shouldn't. What is wrong with us? As just people in general on the world, there's cameras watching all around the world. What are we doing? We're gonna have no privacy. We already don't because of our fucking phones.
Mm-hmm. Cameras everywhere.
You can't, your own privacy, go in your own car, go to Michigan, pick up weed because your state's illegal. And what you do in the privacy of your own fucking home is nobody's business. Not even the government's. As long as you're not fucking murdering somebody or doing, if you go to fucking Michigan to pick up weed because your stupid ass state isn't fucking even medical yet. And this person might need it for medical reasons. And you're tagging his fucking driving patterns. This is what we're coming to now. Take it over, Mr. Weedman. Political state and business news. Passing that joint over to you.
Yeah. New York cannabis farmers are getting a new sales opportunity. This is pretty amazing. Some craft growers can now sell directly at farmers markets, allowing customers to buy from licensed cultivators without the traditional middleman. Supporters say the change could help small farms reach customers and improve margins. Honestly, there's something satisfying about buying local flower, like you'd buy tomatoes. Farm-to-table weed. Imagine that.
Ooh.
Iowa lawmakers and budget analysts are pushing back on the idea that marijuana legalization would magically solve the state's budget problems. Legalization could generate tax revenue, but estimates vary widely, and revenue would depend on the size and structure of the market. So yes, cannabis could bring in money, but apparently the state's budget needs more than a joint and a prayer. Dr. Mehmet Oz is asking senators to delay the federal hemp product ban so seniors can continue accessing CBD products through Medicare-related programs. The administration has been developing a program that can provide eligible patients with up to $500 annually in hemp-derived products, primarily CBD, with some THC allowed. Affordable wellness options sound nice. Let's hope that Congress agrees. The DEA's cannabis rescheduling process is moving into another phase, with transcripts and final briefs becoming important pieces of administrative record. Rescheduling could affect research, taxes, and business operations, but it won't equate to federal legalization. Basically, cannabis is still waiting for Washington to decide what drawer it belongs in. A bipartisan group of 39 attorney generals previously urged Congress to crack down on intoxicating hemp-derived THC products, arguing they create safety and regulatory problems. The coalition now wants federal lawmakers to redefine hemp and close what they call a loophole created by the 2018 Farm Bill.
No such thing as a loophole.
Yeah. That same
Only business development, everybody.
That's right. That same coalition of state attorney generals is putting pressure on Congress to keep restrictions on hemp-derived THC products in place. Their argument centers on intoxicating products being sold outside traditional cannabis dispensaries, and they have concerns about youth access and consumer safety. Meanwhile, the cannabis and hemp industries are fighting over current rules. At this point, somebody needs to pass the popcorn. We've got ourselves a regulatory soap opera. Just dawned on me, why couldn't a dispensary sell hemp flower? Like a non-cycle, like the less than 0.3% THC,
They're
like
going
true
to.
hemp flower.
They're eventually going to, if they want to.
They could.
But
that would be great for the hemp farmers.
Yeah, but no one's going to buy it.
Why? There doesn't need to have it.
It's going to be such a
someone might want to make like what I do, where you grind both and you mix them together.
I get it, but that's not where the money's at.
We'll get there.
Just need to keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up.
Not to say that it has to be sold through a dispensary, but dispensaries could sell it.
They could.
All right. Anyway, moving on. Google is adding stronger quadrails. I'm just making up words. Stronger guardrails around AI features.
You're sounding like me now, Mrs. Weedman.
Yeah, kicking my words. All right. Google is adding stronger guardrails around AI features that can search and interpret personal information from services, including Google Photos. Its personal intelligence tools can connect information across apps, but Google says the system is designed to limit assumptions around sensitive subjects and give users control over which services are connected.
I forgot to write in there, this is about weed. Google's not letting you search your weed photos and stuff. That's what it's about. Sorry, I forgot to type
that part.
Yeah, that part. Sorry. Sorry, buddy.
I was kind of wondering about that. Personally, I love technology, but my photo library of weed doesn't need to become the family gossip columnist.
There you go.
There you go. Georgia's expanded medical marijuana program is attracting so many new patients that state officials are struggling to process applications quickly enough. The surge follows expanded eligibility and access under the state's medical cannabis changes. Officials are working through the backlog as demands grow. A CBS News investigation found that flawed drug testing around childbirth has resulted in mothers being reported to child welfare agencies and police after alleged marijuana exposure. Some hospitals' tests can produce false positives, and the consequences can be severe. The investigation also found racial disparities in reporting. Sorry, but nobody should lose a night with their newborn because of a questionable test result. Minnesota's tribal cannabis businesses are expanding beyond reservations, taking advantage of agreements with the states that allow participating tribes to operate off-reservation dispensaries. Several tribal operators are already building statewide footprints, giving them an early presence in Minnesota's developing recreational market. And honestly, when more states open, consumers actually will win with more choices, better prices, and fewer people will need to drive hours away for their weed. Mr. Weedman, it's back to you.
Thanks, Ms. Weedman. The Senate has extended a temporary lifeline for the hemp-derived THC products, delaying the federal crackdown that was scheduled for November. The move gives manufacturers and retailers additional time while Congress works through the competing proposals. Cannabis companies and hemp businesses remain divided over the policy. First-time cannabis consumers are becoming an increasingly important group for dispensaries as legal market matures. Many newcomers are unfamiliar with products, potency, dosing, and the difference between flower, edibles, and concentrates. That puts budtenders in an important educational role. The industry isn't just selling weed anymore. It's teaching people how to shop for it. Welcome to Cannabis Kindergarten class. Please keep your hands off the edibles. A national survey of 989 employers found 48% don't test job applicants for cannabis, while 40% still test every applicant and 12 test for certain positions. Among employers that do test, 44% reported recruiting challenges. Testing policies vary widely by region and industry. Turns out employees are discovering that cannabis consumers already knew. Failing a job interview because of yesterday's weed is getting pretty damn outdated. Concerns are growing around emergency room visits involving high-potency cannabis products, particularly as the legal market makes stronger flower, concentrates, and edibles more accessible. Researchers caution that cannabis-related emergency visits don't automatically mean cannabis caused every medical problem involved. Still, higher THC means higher risk of unpleasant reactions for some. It's a small sum of consumers. Delaware's first year of recreational marijuana sales came in well below regulators' original revenue projections. Like $54 million. It was projected to do $218 million. Excuse me, everybody. The state expected the new market to generate significant sales and tax income, but actually results fell short. Doesn't necessarily mean legalization failed. It just shows how difficult it can be to predict consumer behavior, pricing, and market development. A Louisiana guest opinion argues voters don't want lawmakers banning hemp-derived THC products and says consumers should have a voice in how the market is regulated. The debate comes as lawmakers nationwide consider tighter restrictions on intoxicating hemp products. Supporters of restrictions cite safety and youth access, while opponents favor regulation over prohibition. The smell of cannabis remains one of the industry's biggest public relation challenges. Strong odors can bother neighbors and create complaints even when cannabis is legal. The industry is increasingly looking at odor control systems, enclosed consumption spaces, and better ventilations to reduce conflicts, because legalization doesn't magically make everybody love the smell. What was the one thing you've always said you liked about weed, even when you didn't smoke it for a
The
while?
smell.
You've always said you
Mhm.
love the smell of weed.
Mhm.
How could you? I mean, there's some people I get it. It's just too strong of a scent. It just, they don't like that funky skunky that I love. Oh my God, when I smell the funky skunky, boy, I'll follow that trail for miles until I get to it, and I've done it. So, but it's not for everybody. I wonder if they like the smell of farts. Oh, man. Sorry, everybody. Houston activists submitted nearly 40,000 signatures seeking a November ballot measure that would make low-level marijuana enforcement one of the city's lowest police priorities. Houston requires 20,000 valid signatures to force charter amendment onto a ballot, and officials are still verifying them. Similar Texas initiatives have faced legal challenges. Nebraska's Legal Marijuana Now Senate candidates say he never planned to withdraw from the race, despite controversy surrounding the state's unusual Senate contest. Mike Marvin remains listed as Legal Marijuana Now candidate. Legal Marijuana Now candidate. I love it. While allegations have circulated about candidates not generally intending to serve, Marvin has rejected those claims. Nebraska politics has apparently discovered a new strain, Election Kush, granted to make your head spin. And that's political state and business news, everybody. Now, Mrs. Weedman's going to tell you that's something that you're all kind of noticing out there. I have been for a while, but maybe you're noticing it. This is a study that finds consumers are noticing cannabis consolidation too.
Yes. This recent article looks at how cannabis consumers themselves are reacting to the growing consolidation of the legal industry. Researchers interviewed 37 adults in established legal cannabis markets, and the participants generally supported legalization, but many expressed concerns about corporate concentration, regulatory costs, and small businesses struggling to compete. The interesting part, this isn't just something business owners are complaining about. Consumers are noticing it too. People interviewed said that they were concerned that large companies and chains could eventually dominate legal cannabis, while independent growers, retailers, and other small operators struggle with the cost of licensing, compliance, taxes, and other regulations. And that creates an interesting contradiction. Legalization was supposed to create a regulated marketplace where entrepreneurs could build legitimate businesses, but the regulatory burden became so expensive and complicated that only companies with substantial capital can survive. And the industry is starting to look a lot more corporate than people originally imagined. The study also found consumers still value local businesses and the diversity they bring to cannabis. Smaller operators can offer unique products, local relationships, and a sense of community that isn't always easy for larger companies to replicate. Of course, 37 interviews aren't enough to represent every cannabis consumer in America, and this isn't a nationwide polling study, but it does give researchers a look into how people in established markets are thinking about where the industry is headed. And honestly, this is a pretty important conversation for cannabis, because there's nothing wrong with successful companies getting bigger. That's business. But if the industry becomes so consolidated that the independent growers, legacy operators, and small dispensaries can't survive, consumers could eventually have fewer choices. And that could mean fewer unique strains, fewer local brands, and less of the personality that makes cannabis culture what it is. It's kind of like going from your favorite little neighborhood restaurant to a strip mall where every place is owned by a corporation. Sure, the food might still be good, but sometimes you want your weed from somebody who actually knows what the hell they're growing. The message here isn't that the future of legal cannabis isn't just about how much weed gets sold. It's about who gets to participate in the industry and what kind of cannabis marketplace consumers ultimately want.
Yeah, it's what you ultimately want, everybody.
That's right.
New Zealand's international news. New Zealand's medicines regulatory has approved 5 additional medicinal cannabis products from Rua Bioscience, expanding the options available to eligible patients. The approval includes new cannabis-based medicines intended for New Zealand's regulated medical market. Hell yeah, New Zealand. Nepal's Gandaki province is moving ahead with legalization to regulate marijuana cultivation and production despite concerns that provisional rules could conflict with federal law. The proposed focus on licensing and controlled cultivation is what supporters pointing to economic opportunities and traditional uses. Let's go Nepal. Viva Nepal. Uruguay has adjusted prices for legal adult use cannabis sold through pharmacies as authorities continue managing the country's regulated market. Uruguay became the first country to fully legalize recreational cannabis nationwide in 2013, and its pharmacy system remains a unique experiment in regulated access. Rwanda's cannabis industry remains focused on exports rather than domestic recreational sales. The country has developed a slightly controlled medical and industrial cannabis framework aimed at international markets with licensed operators producing cannabis under strict government oversight. Meanwhile, Australia's New South Wales lower house has passed legislation addressing medical cannabis and driving offenses. One country wants export dollars, another wants clearer road rules. Cannabis policy never takes a vacation, Mrs. Weedman. Kuwait authorities arrested a man accused of operating a marijuana cultivation operation and seized cannabis plant and regulated materials reportedly worth more than 15,000 Kuwaiti dinars. Kuwait maintains strict drug laws with severe penalties surrounding cannabis cultivation, possession, and trafficking. So this definitely isn't the kind of a home garden project where you show the neighbors your tomatoes. In Kuwait, the grow light can lead you to a very dark day in jail, Kuwaiti jail. Good luck. Ms. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
There's some fun 420 friendly destinations in the U.S. Now,
There
over every summer, we talk about different ones.
Mm-hmm.
This was a couple on here
That we haven't talked about,
we
yeah.
have not talked about.
Yeah.
And it was one that blew me away when I fucking saw it. I was like, whoa,
Whoa.
really? Come on now, really? What was that? Oh, yeah. So tell us about Ms. Weedman. You know
Yep.
what state I'm talking about, too, when I saw
I
it.
Yep. Vice put together a guide to U.S. destinations where cannabis travelers can do more than simply visit a dispensary. The article focuses on places that have licensed consumption lounges, cannabis-friendly lodging, campgrounds, wellness experiences, and other ways to actually incorporate cannabis into a vacation. One of the biggest standouts is West Hollywood, California, which Vice calls one of the country's best options for cannabis hospitality. Its Emerald Village has multiple consumption lounges, including the Artistry, the Woods, Private Reserve, and IYKYK. If you know, you know. Some combine... because I said it both ways.
Yeah.
Were you laughing at me?
Yeah.
Some combine cannabis with food, music, art, and other entertainment. Las Vegas is another obvious contender. Planet 13 has its own consumption lounge, Dazed, while New Woo Cannabis Marketplace offers Sky High Lounge. So instead of buying your weed and wondering where the hell you're allowed to smoke it, there's actual places built for an experience. Then there's Denver, which had adult use cannabis since 2014. The article points out that cannabis doesn't have to be the entire reason for visiting anymore. It can simply be part of a bigger vacation involving restaurants, concerts, museums, skiing, mountains. Denver also has lounges such as Cirrus Social Club and Tetra Lounge. And they forgot to mention the International Church of Cannabis.
Yeah.
Gotta throw that one in. Yeah.
You went there.
You can't consume there, but it's a pretty cool experience. Atlantic City, New Jersey.
This was the one. I was like, hell yeah, home team right there. Atlantic City, let's go.
It has an interesting setup because High Rollers operates a 3,300 square foot cannabis lounge inside the Claridge Hotel, right near the boardwalk. There's also Sunny Teen, which offers events including karaoke, trivia, painting, and yoga. That's basically taking the traditional casino weekend and adding a little green seasoning. For something much more relaxed, Vice recommends Sonoma County, California, where Mine Farm offers designated outdoor consumption areas along with cannabis-oriented experiences like terpene education, infused dining, yoga, massage, and even something called canna birding. Yep. Apparently, you can now get high and go bird watching with a terpene profile. And then there's Maine's Lake region, where Camp Laughinggrass offers cabins, glamping tents, and campsites on 17 private acres. It's basically cannabis summer camp for kids, hiking, kayaking, campfires, and somewhere you can legally enjoy cannabis on site. The campground operates seasonally and closes around mid to late September. One important warning from the article: legal cannabis doesn't mean you can consume it anywhere. Public consumption is still prohibited in many places, and most hotels don't allow smoking or vaping in your rooms. Even a property calling itself 420 friendly can have very specific rules about where you can consume. The article also points to New York, Chicago, Maryland, and Minnesota as places to watch as cannabis tourism develops. Chicago is particularly interesting because Lollapalooza just offered hemp-derived drinks at select bars on the festival grounds. I think the bigger story here is that cannabis tourism is becoming an actual hospitality industry. It's moving beyond, here's a dispensary, good luck figuring out where you can smoke. Now we're seeing lounges, hotels, retreats, infused dining, wellness activities, and entire travel experiences being built around weed. And honestly, I'm thinking a cannabis-friendly spa weekend sounds pretty good right about now. Because sometimes you don't need a vacation from cannabis. You need a vacation with it.
But bang.
Bang.
But bang. This is Weedman. I need a fucking vacation.
We do.
It's been a while. I don't allow us to go on vacation because if we do, we miss an episode of the show a week. So I can't do that to you all. So as we mentioned, rolling our eyes.
I think they could stand not hearing this for a week.
We just double up.
That's right.
Double up, record twice. So, but hey, everybody. Ms. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
That's the end of the show.
Yeah.
You got anything else to say before we go?
Crazy weather out there.
Ooh, here in Illinois.
Crazy weather in Illinois.
Oof.
Wherever you're at, hope you're staying safe and staying well and staying elevated.
Ooh, I like that. Everybody, just got to say something. How y'all doing out there? Are you doing okay? Are you? If not, there's somebody out there that can help. I know it's rough out there right now, everybody, but do the best you can each and every day. Live life. You only get to live it once, so make the best out of it. Just say, fuck it. I'm going to go live some fucking life and have some fucking fun. I love you out there. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.